Welcome to Vigilant News for February 24th, 2022. I'm Justin, and this is Ryan. How's it going, Ryan?
It's a warm and windless day here, but it's better than being in Ukraine, I suppose.
That's for sure. We got a lot of updates about the Ukraine situation. No doubt a lot of you are already aware. Russia has invaded Ukraine or conducted operations, whatever words we want to use. So we got tons of stuff to talk about all that. Before we get started, don't forget to click the links in the description. We have promotions going on. We are a reader-supported site, so if you don't contribute your donations in the form of either Rumble Rants, Super Chats, things like this, we can't fund our operations, so we could really use the support. You can find all those links in the description and all the links we're about to talk about today. So Ryan, you wrote up a massive post, tons of stuff. You want to jump into that?
Yeah, there's a lot of tweets. I'll just make a little note on this article before we get started. This is, of course, going to be a lot of surface-level explanation of what is happening in Ukraine right now. And that's going to be altered depending on who you ask, what pundit you are listening to, etc. If history is any indicator, there are always deeper reasons for the events that take place on the world stage than what the general public is often kept in the dark about the real reasons, for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
In this article, we're going to compile as many details as we can about what is happening in Ukraine and leave it up to the reader to decide how they want to look at it, because that's what real journalism is supposed to do.
That's right. Great caveat.
So let's get into it. Late Wednesday night, last night, Vladimir Putin declared a Russian military operation against Ukraine. Immediately after the public address, Russian forces launched an attack on several locations. By several locations, I mean like 70 some locations, right, at least at the time. I think there's probably more now, causing explosions across the country and including the capital of Kiev. Throughout the evening and early hours, cruise and ballistic missiles hit certain strategic points, including the airports and military bases. I'm sure many of you have already seen a lot of the footage, and we're going to show some more. As per the Ukrainian Aeroflap News, according to the armed forces of Ukraine, the following airports, air bases were damaged by missiles. I'm not going to try to even pronounce any of these. We have clips here. Some of these are from last night when it originally started.
Okay, let's see.
You can try this one, militaryland.net.
So here, yeah, sure.
No. Down.
Oh, okay.
More.
This one.
That's the one.
All right.
Well, we got a bunch to go through here. Show them all.
There we go.
Here's a little taste of what fun games they had in Ukraine last night.
Imagine waking up to that in the middle of the night. All right.
And then you have, of course, the stalwarts at CNN and their reporting here, which is going to be in the article if you scroll down, not in Twitter. Right. Yeah, these guys.
All right, here we go. These jokers.
I think it's relatively safe at the moment. Look, I've got there's another one. I've got a flak jacket right here. Let me just get it on.
So Matthew Chance is live from Kiev, Ukraine. Matthew, we're going to stick with you. Matthew is on a roof in central Kiev, he's telling us, and just
Kiev.
Kiev. There's two.
I mean, just this looks so staged. Maybe.
I mean,
come on now.
Not that the whole event was staged, but the way that the CNN and other places tend to present the news, it's like he had a dramatic pause. As soon as he paused, the boom went off. Right. There was no flash. It's not saying that this stuff isn't happening. It's just saying that they did, for dramatic effect, they kind of
right,
did what they do.
Certainly.
So that's not to downplay what's happening in Ukraine. It's obviously happening. Another clip here shows the Ukrainian military base. This is in the morning. The runway was destroyed by Russians' ballistic missile attack. There was many different airports. The Ivano-Frankivsk, Ukraine, that one was also taken out. Also Odessa, I think. Here's a good one you could show. Just Yeah, I know my dog would not be too happy about something like that. And then we have a clip here of actual combat. This is what combat looks like in 2022, folks.
river of bullets in the sky. My God, talk about disturbing.
Yeah, imagine. I don't know if that's a drone plane or what, but imagine if it wasn't. You're the guy flying it.
I'm just such. The guy looks like he got hit too halfway through.
I mean, yeah, it looks like it got lit up
right there. Yeah, it's like, dang. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. And then this morning brought its own slew of coverage. We had CNN out there. There is more Russian air assault clips. We have this one's pretty crazy. The video of the Russian bombing continuing in Ukraine. Look at this. Just in the distance, you just see that. Imagine. Wow. And again, we don't have any sort of casualty count, anything like that. But the size of these blasts, you got to infer that it didn't go unscathed. So
right.
The Ukrainian airspace is now void of civilian aircraft, as you can see in this image here. Video footage caught in the early hours. These are all people fleeing Kiev.
Wow, no kidding, like that.
Yeah, civilians just trying to get the heck out of Dodge, which is wise, I would say, all things considered.
Yeah, wow.
Was it an Iron Maiden billboard?
Was that just an Iron Maiden billboard? No, get out of here, really? This one right here? Iron Maiden, look at that, you're right.
Interesting.
That's funny, okay.
Yeah, I mean, this could be, here. And
you're right,
if things keep going this way and Biden keeps, showing severe weakness and just bringing the economy down, just destroying the country the way he is, it could be here.
People could be fleeing cities. Yeah,
we could be next after Taiwan. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yep. All right.
So the effects of this: the stocks plunged 770 points on Thursday morning following Russia's surprise invasion of Ukraine. Significant, I would say. The Biden team, who some claim is hell-bent on destroying the USA, is now ending the program that Trump put in place to protect the U.S. from China the same day that this invasion began.
Oh, you're kidding. Interesting.
The timing is impeccable, considering that his weakness provoked Russia, and an even bigger threat is posturing to take Taiwan. As per Fox News, we have a clip here from Fox News. I'm not going to get into that.
Okay.
The world's response. So we had Ben Harnwell on Stephen Bann's War Room this morning, claiming that there are no NATO troops in Ukraine and no plans to deploy them. That was, of course, that's subject to change. After Harnell reported this, the head of NATO security, General Jens Stoltenberg, responded to questions regarding the situation in Ukraine, AP reported. Stoltenberg warned Thursday that the military alliance would defend every inch of its territory should Russia attack a member country, as he slammed Moscow for launching a brutal act of war on Ukraine. We know that Russia launched its attack. Here's a quote directly from them. Russia has attacked Ukraine. This is a brutal act of war. Our thoughts are with the brave people of Ukraine. Peace in our continent has been shattered. We now have war in Europe on a scale and of a type we thought belonged to history. Seems like if there is a coordinated effort to make this something way bigger than it needs to be, I guarantee NATO's in on it. We'll get into our opinions later. You can watch a portion of the remarks there if you so wish. I don't think we should play it. And then we have Trump on Ingram literally moments after the whole invasion began. I don't know if we want to play that or not.
Yeah, sure.
Why not?
Trump, who's joining us now. President Trump, thank you for joining us tonight via telephone. You're watching this unfold. Your reaction to Putin's threat if any Western nation or any nation intervenes with this Russian military action?
Well, this is something that should have never happened. This would not have happened during my administration. In fact, some people were saying, why didn't this take place over the last 4 years during our administration? And it didn't for a very good reason. And I'll explain that to you someday. But it wouldn't have taken place, and it wouldn't have taken place right now. And it's a very sad thing for the world, for the country, and it's certainly very sad for a lot of people that are going to be needlessly killed.
Well, give us a sense, though. I mean, you know Vladimir Putin. I mean, you've dealt with him. How would you have avoided this conflict? How would you have prevented these series of events from unfolding?
Well, look, I do know him, and I know him very well. We've had many times together. I got along with him fantastically. despite the fact that I shut down Nord Stream 2. Nobody would have heard of Nord Stream 2 if it weren't for me. I'm the one that shut it down. And I'm the one that told Angela, you're doing a terrible thing by doing this. And they were going to get 75%, not 30%, 75% of their energy from Nord Stream 2. It was ridiculous. If you remember, I told you this privately once. I sent them a white flag, a flag of surrender. I gave it to, she said, what does this mean? I said, that means you'll surrender as far as Russia is concerned. They've had a lot of conflicts over the centuries. So I think that it's a terrible thing. The way it started, I really don't believe he wanted to do this initially. I think he wanted to do something and negotiate, and it just got worse and worse. And then he saw the weakness. And, it really started, I think, with the weakness in Afghanistan, the way they pulled out of Afghanistan. Absolutely. I really believe that's where he started thinking, he can do this. Because when he saw how
this just goes on and on.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So he didn't really answer her question, but, in a way he did. The difference is that if he was still in office, there wouldn't have been this completely bungled withdrawal from Afghanistan, showing us just how weak we are, or intentionally trying to destroy our own country we are, whichever way you want to look at it. How we're literally creating the new biggest arms dealers on the planet by leaving $82 billion worth of equipment over there.
Yeah.
So there's that little caveat. And then you also have establishment rhino and career politician Mitt Romney blaming this all on the short-sightedness of Donald Trump's America First policies. If we would have just put America last, maybe this wouldn't have happened. He released a statement on Twitter last night, or somebody typed this up. It looks like someone sent it to him in a notepad, and he just
I know. This looks good.
Yeah.
Take a screenshot real quick, toss it up there.
And then naturally, you got Beijing definitely sees this as an opportunity. On Thursday morning, after all of this stuff happened, Taiwan Defense Ministry announced 9 Chinese aircraft have entered its air defense zone.
Interesting.
And I'm telling you, as Stephen Bannon said today, if Taiwan gets taken by China, there goes 30% of our GDP, probably.
Right.
That's going to have catastrophic effects nationwide. No one's going to be safe from that. There's more on this Chinese encroachment if you care to read it.
Yeah, was there something about Taiwan in here?
That's what I just said.
Oh, yeah.
I was just talking about it. If it was 9, China sent 9 planes into their air defense zone.
Okay. So
it's kind of like a flex, kind of like, posturing. So I guess now maybe we can get into opinions.
Sure. You got some stuff right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
There seems to be a lot of individuals sharing their perspectives on the situation, and while their experiences are subjective and some counter to the Western narrative, and in some cases could be potential Russian propaganda, the news is meant to be shared, not withheld. So we're not going to take any one stance on this thing. We're just going to look at it and observe it from the state that we're actually in, completely clueless, but with certain little bits of information and distrust for certain institutions fueling our speculation, I guess. So consider this. If Russia decided to install a dictatorship or formed a military alliance in Mexico, where they ran all kinds of shady money laundering activities and flooded the country with weaponry and leaned on temporary governments to do their bidding all the time, would it be unreasonable for the U.S. to be concerned about this sort of thing, or should we just acknowledge their sovereign right to do whatever the heck they want? Does the political elite, who have collectively had their hands in the Ukrainian cookie jar for years, only to rush to outrage over Ukraine out of a sense of genuine compassion, or is there something more personal about their, stoking this fires of war and hatred towards Russia? We're not trying to let Russia off the hook by any stretch of the imagination. We're rather trying to paint a broader picture of things, more nuanced picture, if you will. The situation looks like from as many perspectives as we can try to understand. That's kind of what's happening. It seems like the deep state, if you want to call it that, is kind of created a whole thing in Ukraine. Like it wasn't just an organic, thing like evil Russia's bad and the good people wanted to make Ukraine kind of a scenario they're trying to paint. It's not that simple.
Right.
It was helped along by international financial elites, the same kind of people who are running all kinds of weird operations all over the world. It's not keep in mind, a lot of what you're learning is very surface level and very polarizing. They want you to think all Russia is evil, all Ukraine's good, or vice versa. And it's not that simple. So,
right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I have 2 articles we'll get to here in a minute about some other things in Russia. One is about the dancing troops, which is pretty interesting. and then Twitter suspending an account and was talking about BioLabs. So I'll have a little bit more opinion to share when we get into that, but just some initial thoughts I had is that, like you were saying, we know with a pretty fair degree of certainty that Ukraine was used as a deep state tool for various reasons and purposes.
In many ways, by many families.
Exactly.
Pelosi, the Bidens, oligarchs from all around the world, Russian oligarchs had hands in it, so it's
precisely. The geopolitical landscape, seemingly since World War II or possibly beforehand, was to use proxies. You have global powers going in, messing with a sovereign nation like Ukraine, and then depending on what's happening, what they're trying to do, they'll use that as a leaping pad to manipulate another country. And that appears to be what was happening with our relationship with Russia. We were using Ukraine as a staging ground to manipulate Russia in some capacity because we wanted to, essentially have globalism by any means necessary. And there were probably Russian oligarchs, like you were saying, that were in there. They were happy to play ball with the globalists so they could make a little money and take over the country in their own way. And it appears as though maybe what Putin is doing is invalidating that agenda in some capacity, or he's trying to do his own version of it. I mean, this is the thing. We don't really know much. So, and
it's not just our politicians. Italy's got crooked oligarchs with their hands in the cookie jar there. All kinds of people do. All these financial think tanks that exist around the world, they know the value of Ukraine, especially over the last 8 to 10 years.
Exactly. So historically, we know enough to say that, or let me make my personal opinion. I would argue studying history, law, the way psychology works, the way sociology works, as long as you have a worldview that says individuals can't be trusted to run their own lives, then you're going to have people who believe that they're elites, who will use any means necessary to try to claim as much power as possible to secure their own way of life and to keep the people in check. And so whether we're talking about American elites, Russian elites, Ukrainian elites, it doesn't matter. They're always going to have that dynamic, I think. What's going on now, it's hard to say. So
just don't forget that the Hunter Bidens of the world literally are over there, in control of how energy works, in control of how finances work over there.
That's right. Exactly. Okay, so let's get into the two I had, and then we'll do a little scrape to see if we can get any last minute updates before we just shine off. So I wrote this one. This is pretty interesting. We had a video of a Russian troops seemingly celebrating with Ukrainian locals and some claims of Russia attacking bioweapons labs. So a video has surfaced showing alleged Russian and Ukrainian troops greeting each other and dancing. Additionally, some suspect Putin invaded Ukraine to dismantle bioweapons labs that could have leaked another COVID-like pandemic virus into the world. So here's the video right here. I'll just play it for you real quick.
Now, this is great. This is the happiest moment of this whole thing.
Right. Now, before we even get into it, I don't have any idea where this video came from. I tried to search for it extensively. I couldn't find anything other than essentially this Telegram post. So I don't even have any idea if it's from.
This could be from 15 years ago.
Exactly. I really have no idea. So, big, massive grain of salt with all this. But let's take a look. I know, that's quite the dance right there. I don't know if I have slick moves like that. But we've got, let's just assume that this is what it claims to be for the moment. I'll just let it play out as I comment over it. Let's just assume that Russian troops invaded Ukraine, and instead of the Ukrainians being really pissed off, they were relieved. What would be the reason? Why would that be the case?
Well, civil war in Ukraine has been a thing that's been going on since Obama,
Right.
So I think there's the separatist group. Just like here, you got the diehard liberals. They love the corporate state. They love everything. They want to mask up. They want no freedoms for anyone. They want to get in their pod and suck down their cockroach milk. Right. Then you got the freedom fighting, Trump-centric people. And then you got the middle people who just want to be left alone, the libertarian types. And it's same thing's probably true in Ukraine. There's probably all types of subgroups over there. Mm-hmm. Some are more in favor of Russia. Some are more in favor of Ukraine. Some probably don't trust either and just want to be normal, sovereign people. That's the thing. You don't want to be mistaken for we're pro-Russia or pro-Ukraine, because I think in both sides there's some funny business going on, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah, we're pro-freedom.
Pro-freedom. Yeah.
Whoever wants to.
Pro not blowing shit up all the time.
Precisely. Yeah. Exactly.
But if there is a contingent of people who believe that what's happening is Putin weeding out deep state elements. That could be true. That could be Russian propaganda.
That's the question we're asking. So this is the question I'm asking everybody to consider is if we have a situation where we know that Ukraine was a deep state leaping pad for various reasons, and they were actively conducting various forms of operations to manipulate Russians and the region in general and destabilize the region, so we could have globalism that caused problems for Russia. Is it within Russia's rights, and would they be interested in trying to stop the shenanigans and in the process provide a better living situation for the people in Ukraine? I think that's a valid thing to consider. And when you ask that, when you think about that question, then you start to look at the rhetoric coming from the mainstream media. You start to realize that the deep state has a lot of, if they go in and they conduct a war in Ukraine, the benefit that they get is they get to destroy a lot of assets and the records, the loose ends of all their cabal activities over the past 10 years, which we know that there are people in Ukraine who want to blow the lid off of all the stuff that the cabal has been doing, especially with the Bidens and Pelosi. So this, in a lot of ways, this provides a very good opportunity for both sides, depending on what your perspective is and what the agenda.
Yeah. Maybe some of these bombings aren't all Russia. Some of them are, deep state assets taking the opportunity to get rid of evidence for certain things, since there's the chaos, the fog of war, as it is.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's what makes sense to me.
Yeah, so I'm going to get into this aspect of the post related to the BioLabs in the following update, but I just wanted to show you guys very briefly. Look at the action. So we have a set of tweets here from various people like Hillary Clinton. I'm praying for the people in Ukraine. Sure. The world will hold Russia and Putin accountable for the human suffering and destruction this unjustified and provoked war will bring. Mind you, this is the same person who was guilty of Benghazi. And forgive me if I might get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure she supported the second Iraq war. This is Biden. The players of the world are the people of the Ukraine tonight, or the prayers of the world are with the people of Ukraine tonight as they suffer an unprovoked and unjustified attack by Russian military forces. President Putin has chosen a premeditated war that will bring a catastrophic loss of life and human suffering. So they've already, mind you, this hasn't actually happened. We don't have any idea like what the actual casualty count is, but these people are already painting it as a massive tragedy to drum up the support that they need to do whatever they're about to do.
They might not know that, but they know what the talking points are going to be.
Exactly.
They know what the strategy is.
And, yeah, exactly. So just real quick shifts. He's doing the same thing. This is Putin's war, senseless, tragic, and barbaric. We got Nancy Pelosi, an attack on Ukraine and is an attack on democracy. Oh, really?
Always with the democracy.
Yeah, like this vague allusion to an attack on democracy. What does that even mean exactly?
Didn't she call it Hungary at first?
Yeah, and I didn't actually watch the clip, but apparently in some clip she was interviewed, she accidentally said Hungary instead of Ukraine. So she really cares about the Ukrainian democracy a lot. She can't even get the name right.
I can forgive her that. I make mistakes sometimes.
Right. Yeah. So keep all this in mind you. So I'm trying to paint a picture for you, and I'm not claiming proof of anything. I'm asking you to consider a possibility. When we have a bunch of information, we don't necessarily know what's the proof is, what exactly is happening. The correct course of action to do epistemologically and from a strategic perspective is to consider all the possibilities and gather evidence for each one to see what kind of picture we could paint. So the picture to be painted here is this a crisis that is an opportunity for the cabal? Because keep in mind, the cabal are experts at creating O plans and contingency plans. They have multiple different ways to affect their agenda. If something goes wrong, they don't drop the ball and they're like, oh, well, I guess we got to give up and we're just hand freedom back to the people. No, they're like, oh, let's see, we're going to implement plan B to use the situation to our advantage.
Yeah. And I just saw on that clip, you even have George W. Bush saying how bad of it. Yeah. Well, at least the presidential center for George W. Bush talking about
exactly.
I think the war in Iraq and Afghanistan probably had a few more casualties than what happened last night. But that's just my own speculation.
Certainly. Yeah, exactly. All right. So given that, let's take a look at this article. So Twitter account showing Russian-Ukrainian attacks on BioLabs suspiciously suspended after viral tweets. So War Clandestine, a Twitter account that posted evidence that the initial strikes by Russia on Ukraine corresponded with BioLabs facilities, was suspiciously suspended earlier today. Thankfully, as this article is about to be published, an archive of War Clandestine's 9 tweets was discovered here, which I won't go through all of them, but this is oh wow, it looks like they ripped that thread down too. Son of a gun.
Wow.
Well,
thread readers even taking
thread readers even taking it down. Thankfully, a good portion of the material is, especially the parts that matter, was preserved in this post. So the information that was in that is largely in here. So that's a relief, but I'll have to fix that here in a moment. The account had posted tweets confirming that, despite mainstream media debunking efforts, the U.S. was in fact working with Ukraine to gather, study, and store dangerous biological materials. Isn't that interesting? So you might be wondering, what do you mean, Justin? Because I've seen all these, mainstream media reports saying that it's all bogus. Well, let me read it for you. This is coming from the U.S. Embassy press release from April 23rd, 2020. I am quoting directly from the press release. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pull it directly up. So if anybody's like, you're just Photoshopped that, this is the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine right here. I'm going to read you exactly what I had pulled a moment ago. In Ukraine, the U.S. Department of Defense Biological Threat Reduction Program works with Ukrainian government to consolidate and secure pathogens and toxins of security concern in Ukrainian government facilities, while allowing for peaceful research and vaccine development. What they're basically saying is that they're dealing with and developing certain bioweapons.
Sounds like gain of function.
Yeah, exactly. I'm almost dead sure it's gain of function. Now, all I have is an illusion to work with, so I can't definitively say it is gain of function or not.
Worth noting.
But yeah, worth noting. I mean, we can definitively from a categorical perspective. So in other words, does it actually describe gain of function if we were to assume it does? The answer is yes. It doesn't say explicitly, but the way it describes their activities, you could certainly easily slip in gain of function research and it wouldn't invalidate the statement. That's what I mean by categorically. Okay, we also work with our Ukrainian partners to ensure Ukraine can detect and report outbreaks caused by dangerous pathogens before they pose security or stability threats. So in substance, what they are saying here is that they definitively gather biological materials, secure them, and develop vaccines related to them. This is exactly what gain of function research is supposed to essentially do. You take a pathogen, you turn it into a bioweapon, you develop defenses against it as a security measure. At least that's the what it's sold to us as. And, it could be used for other reasons, of course, but that's what gain of function is ostensibly. So here we have Outlawed JW on Gab. He actually managed to capture some of the material on the Twitter account that was taken down. And essentially what he's describing is we have BioLabs in Ukraine. All right, so they're here, right here. And then you have the attacks. Now, somebody put together this really great video just showing the two compared with each other. So I'll just play that. And as you can see here, there's no sound, but it'll show it. It's going to go through a slow fade, and you can see. But right now we're looking at the attacks, and then we're going to look at the BioLabs facilities.
That's compelling.
Pretty compelling, right? Now, is it a perfect match down to like an inch of precision? No, we don't have that necessarily, but there's enough here for a reasonable case to be made for the fact that, you know what, maybe there were some BioLabs facilities taking out. I can tell you if I was Putin and I suspected that my neighbor Ukraine was engaged in gain of function research that could accidentally release the next 2020, COVID-19 pandemic, I'd probably want to take out those facilities if I was going to invade Ukraine. But what do I know? I'm just some schlub behind the computer on the internet. So this is very suspicious. Now let me get into the parts related to the psychological warfare tactics used by the deep state or the globalists, whatever term we want to use. Which, by the way, I'm going to reference a documentary. I linked to it in the post. It's the Shadowgate documentary we've talked about several times.
Yeah, I need to rewatch that. Actually.
Yeah, we do. Especially now, dude. Yeah, when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, this is like exactly what they were talking about. So Patriot Takes is an account that retweeted the original post and proudly displayed the suspension of the war clandestine account. So this is Patriot Takes. Misinformation spreads quickly. Help us combat it. If you're able to support us in the monitoring of right wing, please consider a retweet and a small donation. So I don't know what this organization is. Admittedly, I haven't done a whole lot of research into them, but what they do in response to this, in my mind, indicates that they are trying to control the narrative around all this. And the fact that the whole thing was ripped off of, I closed the window, but it was ripped off of Threadreader in addition to Twitter, makes me highly suspicious. I wish I had taken screenshots of that. I was going to too.
Someone probably did.
I'm sure somebody did, yeah.
And there is the possibility that it is all just like a big misinformation campaign to make people look crazy. And this Patriot Takers is like someone who's serious about setting the record straight. But,
of course,
that's just, you got to decide for yourself, because we don't know. No one knows.
And that, I'm glad you brought up that point, because I wanted to speak to how to actually identify a true debunking versus a false debunking. So a true debunking, or proving somebody wrong, or proving that something is false, etc., is somebody makes a claim like it's raining outside, and you go outside and you look up in the sky and you're like, is it raining? If it's not raining, then the reason the person's claim is false is because you've gathered evidence of the subject matter that was being discussed, and now you have evidence to support your claim. So in other words, the way to prove a negative is to go out and determine what's positively present. It's the same basic idea here. If somebody's going to debunk something like, hey, this person who posted this is spreading misinformation, then you would think that they'd be like, oh, hey, this guy was saying that there are bioweapons labs in Ukraine and that some of these might have been taken out, but here's the evidence that shows that what they said is not true. That's not what we see here. Instead, we hear the usual mainstream media tactic of, oh, this is misinformation, we have to be careful about it, without actually saying why it's information. And then they may start to proceed to make character assassination and ad hominem attacks on the account and what they posted previously to try to prove to you that they can't be trusted. This is typical, I would argue, typical psychological warfare tactics to destabilize a person's credibility, not to attack what they actually said. So it's shoot the messenger, don't attack the message. All right, so let's look at this. So this is the tweet of the Patriot Takes, proudly displaying the fact that clandestine war was taken off. Patriot Takes did not invalidate the information shared by War Clandestine. They did not post any information that substantively disproved the claim that Russian strikes targeted and destroyed U.S. BioLabs facilities in Ukraine. Instead, Patriot Takes attempted to debunk the post by suggesting the target locations don't line up perfectly, making a spurious rebuttal that there could just as easily be McDonald's at these locations as well. And that's what you see here. So this is the best that they got for the whole debunking. It's like, hey, look, these targets here, yes, they happen to correspond with missile strikes, but who knows what they were targeting? And because there's doubt as to what exactly was targeting, we can throw the whole claim out. Wrong. That is not the way it works. That's like saying that, well, the guy that tried to rob the bank at the store, he went in there and we don't necessarily know why, because we don't have an admission from him in a manifesto. Maybe he just wanted to talk to his friend and he just so happened a gun on him. Well, yeah, but there's reasons to suspect why this might be the case. And the point is that just because we don't know for sure and you raise that doubt doesn't disprove the original claim. That's an important point. It casts doubt indirectly without invalidating anything. Making a suggestion that something else could be there only confirms that there is an unknown, which categorically agrees with the War Clandestine's claims. This Twitter poster didn't say proof. This is definitive proof that the BioLabs facilities were taken. He's just saying, look at the correspondence. So Patriot Takes then goes on to allude to the fact that it's a conspiracy theory and that it fans the flames of anti-vaccine and anti-mandate rhetoric. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard recently, but the latest trope with people, anytime the mainstream media or their cohorts want to invalidate a person's opinion, they just call them an anti-vaxxer. Have you seen that happen recently? Did you know that apparently over 90% of the truckers in the Canadian convoy were vaccinated, and that they were calling these people anti-vaxxers? Do you know the reason why? Is because they've been telling us for 2 years that anybody who doubts the use of vaccines is some anti-vaccine idiot who believes that the world's flat and has only existed for 6,000 years, things like this.
I get the whole smear thing, but like the using the anti-vax, anti-mandate rhetoric thing as a smear, that's something that is increasingly being accepted as fact now.
Right. Yeah.
So that's not going to cut the mustard, I don't think, on this one.
I don't think so either.
But the people who drink the Kool-Aid, they're going to hear that and assume,
Precise, and that's exactly it. This is specific. I would argue specifically designed psychological warfare tactics designed to invalidate the credibility of this person for people who don't necessarily know how to think for themselves. And this type of smearing works very well, and it does. There are large portions of the population that don't necessarily know how to sort these things out because they don't have a lot of time, and forgive us there, but it works on them. So,
and that's not to say that that means that this is all true. Because it could still just be, BS, Russian propaganda, etc. Could be an intentional, leaking of information that's false to make everyone look silly.
Sure, exactly.
But the way that this Patriot Takes is doing it is just like, it's like high school, lunchroom kind of bullying. Like he's like, it's a conspiracy theories. That's not going to cut it in the future. We're not going to be able to just dismiss things by calling it a conspiracy theory anymore, because how many things that were called conspiracy theories turned out to be very real, very serious problems that are bigger than the things that are talked about on the news.
Thank you.
That's a huge deal. Not to say there isn't a bunch of nonsense, gibberish, garbage in the conspiracy world, but there's also in that ocean of information, there's the most important things that we
precisely, exactly. So this is a typical smear tactic used by globalist media, which often invokes QAnon, racism, or misogyny pejoratives to label mainstream narrative dissenters as untrustworthy. It's exactly what's happening here. I'm going to try to make some time to do a deep dive into what this organization is, but the fact that it's called Patriot Takes leads me to believe it is specifically a controlled opposition firm or entity that was created to appear patriotic, appear conservative, appear right-wing, appear pro-Trump, appear American first, to start grabbing people in and then start feeding in various narratives. And keep in mind, we just watched Majid Narwa on Joe Rogan, who literally talks about this very thing for 3 hours. So keep all this in mind. As a matter of fact, hat tip to you, I actually pulled some information from the interview for the latter part of this post. So here, this is the Patriot Takes tweet, essentially saying, hey, look, we need to be careful. This is all like, conspiracy theory. We have to be careful of all this because it could fan the flames of anti-vaccine, anti-mask rhetoric. Mind you, that just because it might fan the flames of this thing doesn't disprove what the post was saying. That's the thing I want to keep going back to. Yeah, it might be weird. It might even do this anti-vaccine, anti-mask rhetoric, but does it disprove what the original post was saying? Is it really misinformation? Because this guy's had his whole Twitter account suspended based on misinformation. And as far as I can tell, there isn't a lick of misinformation in this. Here we see the typical smear tactics used by controlled opposition intelligence agency style accounts on Twitter, which parrot the same methods used by globalist media outlets like PolitiFact. So this is, if you're wondering, I spent a year, especially when Q was pretty popular, just keeping an eye out on the mainstream media articles, and there were dozens daily, and they all had the basic same formula. And now, even to this day, we're seeing these kind of things. So let's take a look at the accounts that got US BioLabs trending. So he specifically, Patriot Takes specifically cites his war clandestine account, and then proceeds to go through their old posts to be like, hey, look, you can't trust these guys because they posted Q information, like Q was right about everything, or Q people. So here, what is the tactic here? Well, they're trying to leverage the work that the mainstream media has done over the past 5 years or so, trying to say anything related to Q needs to be thoroughly and completely disregarded as total misinformation, and you better damn well not look at it, or you might be labeled as dissident yourself. That's what we're seeing here, I would argue. Now, is that the intention? I don't know. This guy might just be like a couple that runs this account and wants to have their opinion, and more power to them. The end effect is what I just mentioned.
Yeah. The less anybody talks about Q, the better at this point.
Yeah, it's the information that matters, not the man. So these are the Patriot Takes pulling anti-vaccine and anti-mask tweets, again, attempting to throw this person into the deplorables category so they don't have any influence on anybody else. While war clandestine's comments alluding to the launching of an Ottawa police are in bad taste, which is what the Patriot Take shows here, and I'll show you in a moment, it has no bearing whatsoever on the fact the claims made by the account about Ukraine conducting BioLabs research in partnership with the US are valid. So in other words, whether or not this guy did actually, make some nasty comments toward the Ottawa police doesn't really disprove whether or not he was making his comments about Ukraine and BioLabs are valid. And this is what war clandestine has to say about all that. Don't worry, Ottawa police, we got enough rope for your fascist asses too. When all this is said and done, you'll be swinging with the rest of them. History will remember you for one reason and one reason only. I personally wouldn't tweet something like that. This is in bad taste, bad form. Don't do this kind of thing. You just make people look bad.
Can I interject here with something that I'm aware of? So there's this thing called the Joint Research Threat, something JTRIG is what they called it in the UK. It was MI5 operation, where they would create groups like this, whether it's Patriot Takes, clandestine, war clandestine. Very possibly both of these groups are created in a warehouse somewhere where they got a bunch of contractors creating fake accounts, starting arguments amongst themselves. One spreads misinformation, the other one corrects them in a very bullying kind of way, and it just perpetuates the divide.
Yeah.
You know, it's very possible that neither of these things are organic operations.
You are
so
spot on.
consider that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that assessment. I think you're absolutely right, because they use a technique of Hegelian dialectic control opposition. Basically, instead of leaving it open for somebody to have a dissonant opinion, you just create the dissonant opinion. You present it in a way that draws people in, but then you invalidate it immediately because it allows you to control the people in the middle, which is what it's all about. In conclusion, this is a typical ad hominem attack strategy designed to trigger distrust in unsuspecting readers. It is used by cyber psychological warfare units like the UK's 77th Brigade, which Wired magazine revealed conducts activities like the above. So this is what you were just talking about, JTRIG. I mean, you know, this is what Majid Narwaz was talking about on Joe Rogan. He literally cited this article, or I'm pretty sure he did. So, you know, I don't have it. This is a long article. You feel free to read it on your own, but essentially describes how they're literally what you were just saying. They're
British Army. That's what JTRIG was attached to.
Yeah, they use social media, they use videos, they use media reports to manipulate the thoughts and opinions of the general population. This is openly admitted stuff, guys. This isn't some conspiracy theory. So take that into consideration. Let me just read what the 77th Brigade says. It says from the Wired article, emerging here in the 77th Brigade was a warfare of storyboards and narratives, videos and social media. And engagement now doesn't just happen on the battlefield, but also in the media and online. A victory is won as much as in the eyes of watching public as between opposing armies on the battlefields. You see this? Warfare in the information age is warfare over information itself. Like, just sit with that for a moment. What we just saw up here, I would argue, is exactly that kind of tactic. Now, keep in mind, if Patriot Takes really had proof that War Clandestine suspended post was untrue, they would have likely posted it. Why muck around? Why not just post the information? Then you just support all the other stuff you're going to say. But instead, they didn't really have anything. This is the exact same tactics that we saw with Trump during the his whole presidency. They couldn't find anything on the guy. You think if they really had dirt on the guy that was enough to destroy him, they would have posted it? You're damn right they would have, but they didn't.
When it comes to the ruling class, it's almost like they don't care about just giving the people the information to, go into the collective consciousness and let it play out naturally. They want to affect how the information is interpreted and what it invokes in the person. So.
Precisely, yeah. All right, so I'll get off my soapbox here in like 2 minutes. So it's a safe bet that Patriot Takes is just another controlled opposition front used to manipulate public opinion in the internet age of global and subversive propaganda. This is my opinion. I don't have 100% proof of that, so bear that in mind. Another thing to bear in mind is that intelligence agencies, along with their privatized counterparts, such as ShadowNet, have been shown to conduct massive and extremely effective psychological warfare operations called Interactive Internet Activities, IIAs. And this is a documentary I was talking about here. It's this one, Shadowgate. It talks about all the stuff I just mentioned in much greater detail. And I'll let you guys watch that and, have fun with all that.
And rewatch it.
Yeah, you probably got to watch it. I had to watch it twice to really get what I was looking at. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to show you guys all of that as an example of how psychological warfare operations happen.
And so there's a lot more to talk about here.
Sure. Okay.
We have things that we should go over.
Okay.
One being the parallels between this and 9/11. So if you recall the image that Justin showed with all of those heads, the Schiffs, the Hillary Clinton, George W. Bush, there's a lot of parallels to the way the right specifically was acting in the wake of 9/11, creating a culture of hatred, a culture of vengeance around a situation. And it seems that as time goes on, you regret that sort of action. But these guys are out there, Schiff, Hillary, et cetera, fanning the flames of this, vengeance that is, being birthed into the human consciousness right now. So there's that. And we just saying, like, maybe we can be preemptive in this and just kind of like, you know, watch it and like watch ourselves and how it's all making us feel. And just, you know, we're supposed to live in this age of mental health awareness. So like, just be aware of your mental health and be aware that certain people are priming you for certain, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so there's that. Then there was also, it was announced that 7,000 troops were being sent to Germany.
Right.
Which, you know, is who is going to be heavily hit by these sanctions, by the way, the people of Germany, not necessarily the government and the ruling class.
Mm-hmm.
I sent an info on JTRIG to the, we'll throw that in the description. And then I sent you in Telegram some developments that literally just came out that are worth.
Let me pull that up here. Okay, I wonder if I can just share this. I bet you I can.
Oh, I hope so.
Let's see.
Or else I don't know.
Pay no attention to all those Telegram groups.
So we're talking about how, you know, Ukraine is heavily deep state embedded, and it's particularly with the military and Ukraine intelligence. Well, there is a footage here of Ukrainian intelligence burning a mountain of documents. And that goes hand in hand with what we mentioned at the beginning of this stream, where maybe they're trying to get rid of, you know, certain evidence in Ukraine. I think this video, this clip here is pretty straight up evidence of that. So.
Well, yeah, mind you, what are they burning? They're probably burning, you know, deep state documentation.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their hand in the Ukraine cookie jar, as I've stated.
Exactly. Wow, you're right, dude. Look at that. Yeah, I would not be surprised if this is the thing. I mean, why is it that we have wars and things like this happening so much? Is because when you have a war, you get to tie up loose ends, you kill off any of your opposition because they die in war. You know, you kill off the people who helped you that needs to be silenced so they might rat on you, and you get rid of all these documents and you get to start afresh. It's great for everybody.
Operation Save Biden's ass.
Exactly.
That's hilarious.
That's great. Yeah, so there you go. And this is the troops article, for those of you wondering. That's where that came from.
Well, I'm sure this is just one of many developments to come.
Sure.
And if you go back to the Telegram, there was a couple things. Let me, I can pull it up too. Let's see. A couple developments that I thought were interesting and worth noting. There is Biden has been presented the options for massive, unprecedented cyber attacks against Russia. Now, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of our viewers consume a lot of independent media. This concept of cyber attacks has been being shopped around for well over a year, I'd say. Yeah, they talked about it in, you know, the old posts that we're all familiar with, and you know, X22 talks about it regularly. A lot of people have been anticipating cyber attacks, and now in the mainstream, I mean, this is coming from Disclosed TV, so maybe this is true. I don't know. It has to be corroborated still. It's apparently NBC reported on this. So
yeah, I have a clip actually to go with that. So hold on a second. Let me pull that up.
Oh, you got the Klaus?
I got the Klaus Schwab leak.
Well, that's one thing, but this is like literally just happened. Like Biden was presented options for massive cyber attacks against Russia. This is going to open the gate, possibly, for the deep state explaining why the power of the internet is shut down now that Truth Social is ready to go, Durham's ready to go, all of this stuff is ready to go. And then communications blackout that they have been planning on for this moment when everything's about to happen. Now they have a reason to do it. Now they have an excuse. Oh, well, Russia hit us with a cyber attack.
That's right.
Now, now we can't go forward with midterms where it was going to be a bloodbath and everybody was going to finally be held accountable. Now we can't do all of these things. So you knew that they weren't just going to bend over and take you know, the beating for during the midterms, which was coming up. The deep state wasn't going to be like, oh, I guess you got us. Shucks.
Whoops. Sorry about that.
You know, I mean, something was going to be coming down the pipe, and it's starting to become a lot more clear what that is. And that's not even considering what China could do.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Well, to support that, we got this. This is the article here of. So they're floating the options. What does that mean? Essentially, that they're going to declare, or they're preparing to declare, cyber war on Russia. So there's that. And then let me pull up that clip real quick of what I was just mentioning. There we go. Pull that up. Here it is. Klaus Schwab. We have an opportunity to use cyber warfare to affect the globalist agenda.
Get in the pod, eat the bug paste.
Eat the bug paste.
We all know, but still pay in.
July 8th, 2020, by the way.
To the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve in preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
You're not going to answer
that? So there you have it. I mean, he's, again, a crisis never goes to waste. And Emperor Palpatine here has already laid down the groundwork for that. So there.
Dr. Evil.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So anything else we want to talk about?
We could sit here all day. The developments just keep coming in.
Right. Yeah.
I guess I don't have anything I'm immediately ready to go, but
okay.
There's just no. I mean, we do in the show notes. We will have a link to General Flynn's, his take on all this. I would say listen to him before you listen to us, because we're just some dudes in the basement.
Right.
General Michael Flynn, I think he's a little more qualified to speak to some of these things. So you could view that at your own leisure. I don't have anything else to say particularly other than this could have been avoided. This didn't have to happen.
Right. Yeah. It makes me wonder what Trump was getting at when he said this could have been avoided. Maybe we'll find out one day. But any case, well, that's basically all we have, everybody, for our special report here at Vigilant News. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, consider becoming a member at Subscribestar. We could use all the support we can get. You can also find a one-time donation link and buy us a cup of coffee, buy us a lunch. We'll use all that money to good effects, don't you worry. And also don't forget to subscribe to the new website. We're sending out email newsletters every day with all our content to help bypass censorship.
And get in the Telegram too, if you haven't already.
Yeah, absolutely. We're posting stuff in there too. So yeah, really deeply appreciate all the support. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.